This is a short introduction to the rental housing ProForma template that will be used for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund's 2023 application cycle. The Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund has several projects that require a ProForma to be uploaded as part of the application. Those project types are homebuyer new construction, purchase rehab resale, projects involving infrastructure or acquisition of multiple sites, rental new construction, rental rehabilitation, and rental conversion. If you are unsure whether your particular project needs a ProForma as part of the application, please reach out to the Housing Program representative for your region. Before I begin the overview of the rental project ProForma spreadsheets, I just want to remind applicants of the 2023 Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund application cycle that they may find a guide for the ProForma on page 3 of the Rental Program Guidelines checklist. This checklist is downloaded from the Trust Fund webpage. You can see the link on this slide. This is our rental ProForma. It is the required template for all rental projects. And you can see here the first sheet is called Unit Information. So I'm just using a example scenario. I've written it up here. ABC Housing is building 10 rental units and is requesting $725,000 for new construction, $25,000 for site acquisition, and will be offering $25,000 in match to the project. There's a private developer partnering with ABC Housing who's going to own and manage the property and will be providing leverage in the form of owner equity and a line of credit from a local lender. The project is going to keep 5 units income restricted and affordable to those making 120% average median income throughout the affordability period, and 5 units will be market rate. So up here is where you put the trust fund units that are going to be remain affordable for the entire affordability period. And in the next section, you will put the market rate units. You can use both these sections for market rate units if you have more than what one section gives you. First, the number of bedrooms is in this first column, number of units in this next. You can see they have 3 units of 3 bed at 1,000 square foot each that are being dedicated to trust fund for the affordability period. 2 of them are 2 bedroom. But in total, they have 6 3-bedroom units and 4 2-bedroom units. Over here, you have your gross monthly rent per unit. The 3 bedrooms are going to be $1,000 a month. They expect tenants to pay the utilities, so $120 will be tenant paid. And so that gives a net monthly rent per unit of $880. If you were going to pay the complete bill and not the tenants, then of course this would be 0, and you would add that, and this would be $1,120 over here. But ultimately, this line here, this column here, is the one you check against the rent limits to make sure you are staying within the rent limits on the Home Trust Fund rent limit table. So I'll put that back how we had it there. Okay, so when added all together, the trust fund units, top section, and then plus the non-trust fund assisted units, there's approximately $89.80 going to come in as revenue from these units. This is showing what a 7% vacancy of $629. They're assuming 7% are always open or vacant. We're finding that that percent is high these days. So we are allowing in the ProForma for you to go down to 3% if that is a true vacancy for your project. you can pick 4 or 5%, just support your vacancy number that you are choosing for the Proforma. And so these numbers will flow through to other parts of the sheets. I'm just going to show you over here. The trust fund budget for this scenario would look like this. They're asking for new construction, the trust fund $725,000, and they're going to give $25,000 a match for a total of $750,000. $25,000 in acquisition. Housing management $50,000. This is 10 units times 5,000. Because those 10 units are going to be constructed during the open contract period, likely in one building in this particular scenario, then they are going to be making sure all tenants are eligible, or if they are going to take market rate units, you still are doing some income verifications and such in case you do a floating unit on your contract, so that if one trust fund unit no longer has a eligible tenant in it, you can float it to another unit that does have an eligible tenant in it. So because you are going to be completing these units in the contract period, we're allowing for the housing management of $5,000 per unit to apply to both market rate and the ones you're going to have remain affordable for the duration of the affordability period. So that's why $50,000 is the maximum you could request for housing management. And general admin is up to $20,000, and in this budget they've chosen to take the $20,000 in order to fulfill the general administration part of being a partner in the state-funded application. The next sheet is trust fund assisted units, and this is kind of a cost allocation sheet to figure out how many units must be claimed to remain affordable for the duration of the affordability period. So when you're first building your Proforma, you all you could fill in this perhaps is the number of units, total units being completed during the period, and it's 10. And you will look up on the trust fund website the subsidy limit. So this is a unit subsidy maximum, and you'll put that in there. The rest of these numbers will be auto-filled as you fill out the rest of the sheets. Also, only use the top portion if all your units are the same number of bedrooms. Now, I went ahead and filled this out as if there were as if there were all 10 units had 3 bedrooms. Let's see here if I wrote that out as if all had the same number of bedrooms. So I wrote this as if they all had the same number of bedrooms, and so I used the top, and as we went through the rest of the sheets, it fills it in. However, you could see in our unit information sheet, they don't all have the same bedrooms. Some have 3, some have 2 bedrooms. So in that case, you're going to be filling out the bottom portion of this second sheet. And you will just find the yellow here, and there are 4 2-bedroom units in this project and 6 3-bedroom units. And you cannot fill anything else in. It'll all be auto-filled once you complete the rest of the sheets. The development cost schedule is where you'll input the amounts for developing, for constructing or rehabbing the units for this project. You will input here, and then they come over to this side as well, except where this is blacked out, then they will not. We are uploading a new Excel copy of the template as of March 22nd, and that one will have some auto calculating. So if whatever you put here will automatically move over to here. So please go to that and transfer your numbers over into that one if you're able to and haven't sent that into your housing rep already. It will just, I think it just will work smoother for applicants to use that one. And so you could see some numbers. Let's see here. I mentioned the column B amounts are blacked out if it is not going to be used for cost allocation purposes. And so this just only allows the ones to flow over that can be allowed. In this example, there's just a difference of $3,000. It's the replacement reserves here. There's also the operating reserves. To get this number, once you know your operating expenses and your service debt, then you're going to figure out what the 6 months worth is, and that should be in your operating reserves as part of your project. Rent up reserves, this is an estimate of what your project owner and manager is comfortable with. We've seen it estimated as high as 6 months. It's really just dependent upon how long you think it'll take to lease it up once it is fully built or fully rehabbed. And then you should be spending this down as you start to rent them up. So it's just a reserve at the beginning of the project to help you make sure that you have enough to get you by until all units are leased up and bringing in an income. So magically, this particular example comes out to $2 million as the full development costs. All of these numbers flow over into different areas. You'll see here on the sources and uses page that we have $2 million comes over here from cell B48 of the development cost schedule. And then after uses, you have sources, and the sources in this particular project is going to use a $600,000 loan from the bank, and they are asking $750,000 in primary and support activities from trust funds. This does not include general admin and housing management or lead-based paint. You are only including the primary and support activities that have been chosen for your project. In this case, they add up to $750,000. Also, the applicant is putting in a match amount. So the applicant's match amount is inserted here at $25,000. You might have some other sources. These are just examples. They might work for your project and they might not. So you have some lines here to put your sources if this works better. The important thing about this is that uses and sources need to equal each other in order to be balanced. The operating expense info is a really important part to estimate realistically the kind of expenses that are going to be a part of this project so that you are well aware of the kind of expenses plus your debt service so that in making an affordable units that this is going to be able to return some cash flow and be sustainable. Sometimes there's some advertising costs in getting it leased up. You have some legal fees. Perhaps you have a property manager or a property management that charges a certain amount to take in and manage the property. You also often will have trash removal. Maybe if tenants are paying up for utilities, you may not have anything in the electric, water, sewer, gas. Unless there's a common area that you're having to pay for. So some of that might show up in there. Snow removal, estimate for that. Regular maintenance expenses, try to get a good estimate of what that might be for the project. And a place that I see often underestimated these days is what insurance could cost on the completed building and real estate taxes. So try to get a good feel for what those are so you are not surprised by your annual expenses. You'll include taking $3,000 because that's 300 times 10 units for your replacement reserves. This is used for fixing, cleaning and fixing an apartment between tenants. So then you have your total expenses and reserves there. This goes down here. You've got your cash flow, the net monthly cash flow, and then annual. The total operating expenses, again, you'll take your operating expenses and the annual debt service. Once you know what your annual debt service is on that $600,000 loan, you'll input it here. When you add those two together and take it times 6 months, you're going to have an amount that you're going to go over and put in the development cost schedule under operating reserves. So now all these have been filled in. They are going to flow over to the ProForma. The last thing you need to put in the ProForma is your loan amount that you'd stated you're going to have $600,000 as one of the sources. This is super important to have an idea of what the rate is, amortization and term, because all of that figures into what your annual expense is going to be for debt service, and it can make or break your debt service coverage ratio. You want at least a 1.2. We do allow 1.15 in the first year and never to go below 1. So if you're breaking even at 1 to 1, that'll be a 1.0, but you need to have at least 1.15 in the first year. And you want it to remain sustainable throughout the affordability period. So you don't want this debt coverage ratio going down below the 1.0. So you'll want to check that. And a lot of that is run by this alone. It's also whether your vacancy rate. So you can see if your vacancy rate isn't going to be 7%, perhaps it's 3%. If we change that, it recalculates and your debt coverage ratio goes up because you're getting more revenue. You're not having as much vacancy. So you can play around with those numbers. Now, all those have been completed, and you can come back and see how it filled out in the trust fund assisted units. And of course, these again had different size bedrooms, so it's the bottom part that we use of the sheet. And we filled in 4 two-bedroom units. 38% of the project is funded by trust fund. 2 of the units, and this is a formula, and it's taught to round up, always round up to the whole. So 2 units will have to remain, 2 units of the 2-bedroom will have to remain affordable for the duration of the 10-year or whatever affordability period. 6 of the 3-bedroom units is how many 3-bedroom units they are. Take that times the 38% and round up. There's 3 that need to be remaining affordable. So if you add 3 and 2, you get 5. So this is the 5. If you're using the older worksheet that was posted on February 9th, this does not match up very well to show the rounded up figures. And so we have put a new Excel on as of today. So we hope that you will use that one instead. But we will be checking this if some of the February 9th Excel sheets are used. We will have to recheck this. So 5 units will have to remain affordable. And that's, what you're going to work with. You're going to make sure you have your 5 up here, and your amounts of revenue are determined by the number of units and the rates that you're charging. So market rate is normally going to cost more than what you're going to allow for the lower income. But every project is different, and you're going to kind of make your determination, and you're going to build your case for why you are choosing the rent amounts that you choose as well. So that's kind of the top overview of the rental ProForma spreadsheet. Please talk to your program representative, your housing program representative, if you have questions about it, and they'll be happy to help you.